With E3 coming up in less than a week, we have a whole bunch of big games that are more than likely going to be there, or at least most of us expect to see some of them there. These giant titles range from Animal Crossing to Luigi's Mansion 3 to Halo Infinite to the new Gears of War game to a whole bunch of other different titles that may or may not be there. But a lot of these games are quite big and we're looking forward to them. And mostly in Nintendo's case, well, I guess for Xbox too, a lot of these games are slated for this year, for 2019. And now there is the chance that some of these games, even though when they were initially revealed, they said 2019, that there's the chance that some of them we might not actually see at all. We might not see this year. We might not see them till the end of the year, and then they might have gotten pushed back. But I've seen a lot of videos recently from some bigger YouTubers and some smaller YouTubers. There seems to be this consensus of a thought that, at least Animal Crossing in specific, that since we haven't seen anything on it yet, that means that it's probably not going to be this year. And it seems like out of all the different E3 predictions and E3 podcasts and everything surrounding E3 that's come up lately, that the question of what do you think that we thought we'd see there that you think is not actually going to end up being there? What game do you think that would be? What game do you think would be pushed back? And it seems like the overall answer for that is Animal Crossing. Now, I just find that weird because Nintendo, when they initially revealed it back last year at the end of September in the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct, just basically showed Tom Nook and it said Animal Crossing 2019. And we haven't seen or heard anything since then. We haven't heard a single peep out of anybody. We haven't heard a single leak. We haven't seen a single screenshot. We've just completely seen nothing other than that one trailer tease. He's picking Animal Crossing as their main game that is either going to be pushed back, or that if we don't see it at E3, then that means that there's absolutely no way it's going to be this year, and that it's going to end up like Yoshi's Crafted World and be pushed back to 2020. And I just don't see that happening. Guys, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So anyways, I just think that's kind of strange for a lot of people, most of the majority saying that Animal Crossing is going to be pushed back, or that we might not even see it at E3. I think it's a 100% chance that we see it at E3. Or even if we only see a minute, there's been other people that said, if we get the full blowout and the full title and a giant trailer with talk about it and treehouse footage, then most likely 100% it's going to be a 2019 game. But if we only see maybe the title reveal with a quick sizzle reel on the game, and it's only a minute or 2 minutes long, then that means it's more than likely not going to happen this year. And I just think that's a little bit absurd, because even if that was the case for any game, whether it would be Luigi's Mansion, even if it still just says Luigi Mansion 3, working title, and then we see like an actual minute or say 2 minutes of gameplay, that somehow equates to the game not coming out in 2019. That just seems absurd to me, because E3 is not the last Nintendo Direct of the year. That's just not how it goes. That's not factual. And it doesn't make sense that if we don't see some of these huge games that we think we're going to see at E3, that it just means that Nintendo is basically doing what they've done before. And in my experience and opinion, it seems like that only happened with Yoshi's Crafted World, and now I guess Fire Emblem Three Houses, which it's only missed spring by a couple weeks. People have this thing in their head where they think June means summer, and by the time September rolls around, that means fall. And if the game is in the end of October or November, that's winter. And I don't know if you've ever looked at a calendar lately, but that's not how the seasons actually work out. So yeah, okay, it happened with Yoshi's Crafted World, and we saw it in 2017, and then for every subsequent Direct for at least 4 or 5 different Directs, we didn't see Yoshi's Crafted World at all. But it finally did come out the following year, and we did see it, eventually. But so like I said, in my experience, that's the only time that I've seen that really happen. And now you have things like the Crypt of the Necrodancer, Cadence of Hyrule with the Zelda characters, that just because it didn't drop last week in May, and now that it's June, that somehow the developers of the game, and when we first saw it, that they promised us that it would be in spring, and now that it's in June apparently and gonna be dropped, at least from what the data mine says, which is June 20th, but that it might come sooner, it might be shadow dropped at E3 after Nintendo's Direct, that somehow they broke their promise when really we're still in spring. It's not actually summer yet. And the same goes for Fire Emblem Three Houses, which was slated for spring 2019 as far as we knew at the end of last year, and now we've come to find out that the game is actually in July, which we learned about 2 or 3 months ago, and that does technically make it a summer game. But it just seems like everyone is taking every title, and if they just give it a broad season that it's in, that somehow it's missed the mark, at least with these 3 or 4 games that I'm talking about here. And so anyways, I'm just trying to get at that just because we don't see some of these games perhaps doesn't mean that we won't be getting them until 2020. If we don't see Luigi's Mansion at E3, it's still possible that we see it in a September Direct or maybe even an August Direct. Like, we don't know what Nintendo's gonna do. Just because you don't see a game doesn't mean you won't see it next time, and it doesn't necessarily mean that just because it's not in a Direct that it won't get its own Direct, or that we won't just see a full blowout reveal trailer for it that's separate from a Direct. It's kind of like back in April, everybody thought we'd be getting a Direct, and then it just never happened, and everybody was pushing for it and trying to make it happen. And even though we didn't get it, we still got information like from Nintendo on Twitter for things like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and then we still got a trailer for it, and people were saying, you know, we need to have a Direct. Nintendo has to give us a Direct. We don't know every single detail about Mario Maker 2, which means we're getting a Direct. And of course they did have their own Direct, but people got kind of worried back in April, and then there was no Direct, and then we still got the info on Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and then Nintendo had their Direct for Mario Maker 2. So you don't know what Nintendo's gonna do. No one ever does, and that's basically that. But I just find it absurd that this year more than ever, it seems like the general consensus is if we don't see Animal Crossing, and if we don't see Pokemon Sword and Shield, and if we don't see Town, and if we don't see Luigi's Mansion 3, and if we don't get more on Fire Emblem Three Houses, or if we don't see the full reveal for Daemon X Machina, or if we don't get more on Dragon Quest XI Definitive for Nintendo Switch, whatever the full title is for that, or if we don't see more for The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, or if we don't see something on Metroid Prime 4, which we already know has been scrapped, people are still thinking that we might see some kind of concept art, or that they might come out and actually talk about it, and I just don't see that happening. I don't think that's going to be this year, and I don't think that's going to be next year, maybe at the tail end of next year. At the very end we hear or see something about Metroid Prime 4, but I just don't see them coming out and showing rough sketches just to tide us over, to give us some kind of idea for it. It's like if we don't get the full reveal on all of these games, then that means Nintendo is going to push possibly a couple of them back into 2020, and they just vanish from thin air for the next 6 months, and we don't see or hear a single thing about them. But I think at this point in the Switch's life cycle, you know, we're 2.5 years in, sales have been good, there's way more than enough Switches out there, and the sales on all the software and all the numbers for the sales have been exceedingly, like, exceptional. They're doing amazing, and all these developers and all these concepts for all these games have actually had a good 2.5 years, maybe more, maybe less in some cases. They've been around long enough to be in development for long enough to where a lot of these kinks and stuff would be ironed out. So it seems like we're at a very good point now to where these games actually that are being shown and, you know, basically air quote promised, even if they have a certain like spring 2019 or fall 2020 release date, it seems like more so than ever is the time for them to actually stick to their word And in the case of Yoshi's Crafted World, that was an Unreal Engine 4 game, and Nintendo's first foray into Unreal Engine 4 for, you know, a first-party Nintendo game. So I don't think we're going to see that happen with any of these games. I don't think Luigi's Mansion 4 was promised in 2019, and then all of a sudden it has to be this end of the year October. It has to have this Halloween release date. So if we don't see it at E3, then that basically means we don't get it until 2020. Like, it seems like people are getting a little bit pushy and a little bit out of their mind when thinking about these kinds of things, because same for Link's Awakening. We don't know when that comes out. That could be coming out in the end of July. We could watch E3 and find out it comes out in about a month, maybe 4 weeks, kind of like with the Mario Maker 2 trailer. Here's the trailer, and then in about 5.5 weeks it comes out. So that could be the same with Link's Awakening, but it seems like people think, oh, if we don't see it at E3, then that means it's not going to be this year. And that's just absurd to me. So E3 is coming up, and we all have plenty of expectation, and maybe some more than others. I have my expectations in check because I know there's only so much time and only so many things to show. And even if we don't see them at E3, it's the same as last year and the year before and the year before that 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 and 2 years before that, where it's not the last time to show these games off. If we don't see half of them, and if the Direct is like last year with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and they spend 32 out of 45 minutes showing off Animal Crossing, then somehow that means we're not going to get Link's Awakening. That kind of thought process is just absurd. So E3 is coming. There's going to be plenty of games, plenty of things to be hyped about. I'm excited for it. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. As for me, I'm not that pushy. I have realistic expectations and thought process, so I know that even if we don't see these games at E3, we're going to have probably another 2 Directs before the end of the year. With the amount of games that are coming, we pretty much know that the second half of the year is going to be packed to the ceiling. And if you're interested in all these titles, well, you better get some overtime, because your wallet's going to be hurting just like mine and just like the next person's, unless you're getting a bunch of review codes or something like that. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to talk about this, and I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. I'm going to be doing more E3 coverage just like everybody else. So catch me on the E3 hype train. Choo choo, and I will see you guys in the next one.